Alrighty, welcome back. We're going to do part 3, all right, of your portfolio here. I'm going to start off by, I found an error. I found a syntax error in what I was doing. So I'm going to start off with that. I'm going to go over inputting some images, working with Bootstrap cards, and doing some buttons. So that way we can finish up our project. So let me share my screen. And the first thing I want to share with you all here is syntax errors. Well, I don't know if it's syntax errors for HTML, but essentially, right here, I noticed that I opened up the spacer div as I was copying, and I didn't put the slash here for the div. So make sure you have that. You close the div for your spacer, or else what's going to happen is your divs are going to keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller by 5% because it's going to be nested inside of spacers. So you don't want that. So make sure that you didn't make that same mistake, or if you did, you could fix it, and that'll fix what this looks like here. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an image into my About Me. All right, so there's my About Me, and there's some text. And again, you can fill in that text later, but I just want to show you how you can grab a picture. So what I did is I went over to my Twitter. There's me. All right, and I just clicked on my profile picture. I'm going to right click and copy image address. What that's going to allow me to do is come up to the top here. All right, and I want to find out where that picture is. Now remember, I have a spacer, and it just has an alternate text of Mr. Snow, and the image source. All right, image source right here. Pound sign or hashtag if you're young. All right, and I'm going to Control V and paste that right in. And let's see what I get. Oh, look, there's me. But since I rounded the edges of my div, I'm going to round the edges of my image. And that's pretty easy. We can do that with some CSS. All right, so we can just type image. All right, and I'm going to add in this image. And all I'm going to do is add in a border radius. Right, there you go. If you can spell correctly, it does help of 10%. And you can see, there we go. I rounded the edges, so it matches the rounded edges of my div, and everything just looks nice. So anywhere I plop an image down, all right, that's going to allow me to round the edges. It's going to look nice. All right, so there we go. All right, so now I have your profile section done. I mean, obviously, you're going to type some stuff in there about yourself later on, but you can go in and do that later on. We could talk about adding in paragraph breaks, then resetting your p tags with offsets and things a little bit, in a future video if you really want. But for now, just add in text and you should be fine. All right, so let's go down to the portfolio section. And I said, oh, look, put cards here. All right, so what cards am I talking about? Hey, Bootstrap documentation, cards. So this is the new documentation, all right, here for the cards. And essentially, I want a card with a title here and some content and a button. But I'm not actually going to add this button in right now. I'm just going to have a picture, the title, and a little bit about it. All right. So what I'm going to do is it's pretty simple. We're going to copy. Where'd you go? There it is. Sorry about that. So all you have to do is copy this chunk of code. Now with here, notice this rem. All right. Rem, these are relative units based on the size of your font. All right, so the size of your font is going to be a certain number of pixels, and it's going to be multiplying that by 20, essentially. There's also EM, and there is a difference, and I read the difference, and there's plenty of articles on it, and I still cannot come up with a good, solid explanation. So when I go back and do more research on it, I can always come back and try to explain that difference to you. If anyone wants to comment below, because Mr. Snow just hasn't really had time to look that up yet. Difference between REM and EM, but it's okay. So this is just in the Bootstrap documentation. I went to go find cards because I know that cards work well. And I can copy this chunk of text, all right, to save that for later. But I don't want to just plunk down one card. Let's say that I want to use the cards here inside of this div, all right? and I want to do one side by side and do different rows of these. So in Bootstrap, we can break up cards. So if I go to Bootstrap, uh, and let's just say that I want to go with rows and columns, and I want to explain something to you here. The Bootstrap has a built-in grid system, all right? And so if you Google your Bootstrap grid system, all right, you can see that you have rows, and each row you have a column. Okay, so think about that. So every container you can break up into rows and columns, and we have extra small through extra large, and these are minimum tolerances as your screen size changes. All you have to know is that you need to define a row, and each of those rows you can break up into 12 sections, up to 12 sections, and then you can define the tolerance for that column. Meaning, if you say small, that means it's going to hold those 12 columns all the way down to a screen size of 576 pixels. For the image size that we're using, we're going to use two side by side that are going to be, somewhere around that 300 width. So if you want two rows that are next to each other with a width of 300, with some padding, we're going to say that we're going to use medium columns before it changes automatically and starts stacking them on top of each other. So medium works pretty good for that. All right. So that's what we want to do. And you can see, so here's columns. And so if we can break these up into a total of 12, okay? And so I'm going to kind of scroll down, and you can kind of see how you can vary this and add in columns and how they all break out. And so there's a 8 and 4, because 8 and 4 equals 12. Or if you want to break this up into 3 equal sections, all right, you'd have 4, 4, 4. All right. So you can see, and it tells you how you can divide this up if you would like, and it's going to tell you that it's automatically going to divide it. It's going to say you can mix and match, and you can really go through this documentation a little closer and take a look at how to break this stuff up. And you could talk about all kinds of things like gutters and how to align it. And I'm not really going to mess with a whole bunch of this right now, but you just have to know that you can even go through, look, you can nest them, all kinds of stuff you can do with them. But there's all documentation and sample code for you. But just so you know, we're going to be using medium, all right, for all of this stuff. It just makes it easier. Just because I happen to know we're going to be using that size. If you start embedding your CodePen pens into this, I would suggest going with large or extra large if you're going to do 2 columns. But you don't really have to worry about that right now because you don't really have any pens to embed. But if you plan on doing that, you might want to use large or extra large for your actual columns themselves. So the first thing that you're going to have to do is you have to break everything up into rows. Let's say that I'm just going to go ahead and do 2 rows with 2 projects each. So I'm going to break this up. So I'm going to go find my portfolio section here. Remember how I broke this up and I left the space, even though you're not really supposed to leave space typically when you're doing your HTML. But visually for us, I left some spaces here. So I have a spacer. I closed that div now, so I fixed it. Then I have the anchor tag for the top, which allows us to blip to that section. All right. Then I have a div class block. That block is what you can see here represented as this black area. Then I have an H1 class for the header being the portfolio. All right. And then we can close our H1 tag on our portfolio. And then you can see how now, because I closed the tag, the text size changed. And then same thing in the about me. I don't know if you want this, but you can kind of see how the text is really big. It's because as I was typing here, I just hit, where is it? So H1, and I added another H1 tag. I didn't actually close the H1 tag because I was getting kind of sloppy. So if you make sure you close it, you can see the size of the text. And I'm going to show you how to go through and adjust that as well a little bit later on. So you can kind of see that actually looks kind of small for text, but for right now, that's fine. We can actually adjust it in CSS using the EM, which I'm going to do at the end here. Anyway, let's go back to the portfolio. So here's the portfolio. if you notice, I did add a span in here. That's so I can drop in some interactive inline elements later using some JavaScript or some jQuery. But don't worry about that. I'm not even going to get into that in this video, but it was just in case I want to do that a little later on. So then I have a break and a p tag put stuff here. So before this p tag, I'm going to end up erasing that anyway. I'm going to add in a div, and the class that I'm going to add in is row. All right. And then I'm also going to add in some padding to that row. So I'm just going to add in a div. All right. And I'm going to add in a class. I'm going to set that class equal to row. Oops. Row. Make sure you have that. And that'll be good enough. And then I'm going to add in a style. Now remember, I could just do this in CSS by giving this an actual class and naming it a certain class, or I can give it a name and then target that name with the CSS or the jQuery. But I'm just going to do it right here because I'm going to copy and paste this over again. So it's just going to make my life a little easier. So row style, and then I will just say, I'm just going to add some padding around there. It'd help if you can spell. Some padding of, I don't know, 5%, and that's just going to give us some room in between our rows. So there we go. So I have a style. Thought my mouse got stuck for a second there. All right, and since I opened up a div, I'm going to have to close the div. Make sure you're closing everything, or else it messes it all up. And so this is one row. So inside of this row, columns. All right, so I need to divide this up again. So I'm going to divide this. All right, and then I'm going to give this a class, and this is going to be a bootstrap class, not plus, equals. And the bootstrap class that I want is a column, medium, and 6. Column because I want to break it up into column, medium because of the tolerances I showed you earlier, and 6 because I'm only going to have two things side by side. All right, so column, medium, 6. All right. And let's say that we want to make this everything kind of centered in this. We can either add in the class for this entire row to center everything, or we can put it in the individual div here for the cards. So it's kind of up to you. So let's just do this easy way and just add in text center up here. But just so you know, you can actually change whether you want center text or move everything left or right justified in these individual divs using this class, or you can target this class with the name or the ID in the CSS. So it's up to you how you want to handle that. But just for ease of use right now, I'm just going to put it here inside of this main div that we're working on. And if you want me to break this up here for you, here that I'm working on right now is just going to be the card section. Okay, so I have a column, medium, 6, and then I'm going to close this div. All right, so, and in this is where I'm going to put my first card. All right, and I want 2 of these columns. All right, so now I have a column of 6, column of 6 under this one row. All right, so that's good. So there's one row, and you can kind of see where this matches up. And then, so I have one row broken up into 2 sections. And if you want to see if I type something and I type something, and let's see what this looks like. If I go to my portfolio, you can see I have right here 1 and 2 sections broken up. So now that I have one row, I'm going to make another row just by Control C, add in some space, Control V, just so you can actually see what's going on here. I'll clean some of this up there. And now we should have, if I go to portfolio, there you go, 1, 2, 3, 4 sections to put things in. All right, good to go. I might have to add in, well, let's go with, well, I'll do that later. I'm going to do something later with the padding, but this will be good for now. So here's my bootstrap cards, and I want to drop in cards. So I'm just going to copy this code for the cards, and I'm going to go to my very first section. Okay, so find your very first section. Mine's right here. So I added in text there just so you could see what I'm doing. And right there, I'm just going to hit enter to give myself room and Control V. And there is a card. And I'm going to go to my portfolio. And you're going to see, oh, look, I have a card. There we go. All right. And again, this is starting right up here. So I'm going to add some padding top and bottom as well. And you can kind of see it says go somewhere. It gives you a size and all that. So here we go. So there's my card. Pretty simple. All right, so let's really take a look at this. So do we want a button attached to our card? For right now, I really don't need a Bootstrap button to go somewhere because I'm not linking to anything else. If you have external websites you're linking to, you can use this button to use right here. So I'm going to delete. All right, so all I did was delete that. So now I no longer have a button. Go to portfolio. Now I have a title and some text. Okay, that's good. So the image card cap, all right, that is the alternate text. And this is where you're going to put in the image itself for the source. Okay, so that's going to be important. So there we go, center. So as we take a look at this, now we can style this however we want, this image itself. So we have the image class, and then we can actually add in, well, let's do that. So let's add in a source. So let's go to Google, and I'll say in snow. There we go. So let's say I want to pop in an image here of some puppies in the snow, and there is something, and let's see if this gets through my school filter. It does. So I'm just going to copy that URL, and just as a placeholder, we're going to see what this comes out like. My portfolio, and I'll give us room. And look, the edges even came out rounded because I have this image CSS here. Kind of neat, right? All right, I don't like that. That is really big. All right, since that is really big, I don't really want it really big. We're gonna come in here. Let's see. So there's a class here. Then the alternate for this, I will say Snow Puppy. Okay. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking all this stuff and I'm setting it up, and then I'm just going to copy and paste it across. All right. So how did we deal with this? Yeah, we have a height and a width for style. All right. Inside of the image tag itself over here. Right. Remember how we did this for the original one? And so I can retype it, but let's say I want all my images to be the same size, to be the same style. So I have this style here for the image. All right. Now I could copy and paste this style everywhere, but since I already have this image CSS, all right, I can just say width 300 pixels and height 100 pixels for all of my images. All right. So now if I did this right, it's a big if when you're doing something live here. So there's that image still the same. Oh, look. Now that image is the same size. So every time I put an image in, it's always going to be the same size. Nice. That makes it look like I know what I'm doing. So let's see. Why is the text not centering here? Oh, the text is centered on this card. Okay. So here's the centered text here. All right, on the card title. That's good. It's off a little bit though. So let's see. Div class. All right, so the class is card. I have a card. I have a width set. And here we have a class image card top. So that's from HTML. This is the source. There's the alternate text. And here we have, let's see, pretty much what we want, right? And then we can always, we're going to try to adjust this a little bit later on. I'm trying to get this to line up a little better after we clean this stuff up. But let's just say that that's pretty much what we want. So where's the card title in the CSS? The card title is right here. See this H4 element? And we could change the sizes of all this by, it doesn't have to be H4. We could make this, let's say we want this title to be H2. And card title, Snow Puppy. This is cute. And let's see what that looks like. There you go. Snow Puppy. This is cute. All right. And again, we're going to be adjusting some of these sizes a little bit later on because this lobster font is pretty small. But anyway, there we go. And so now we have, let's see where we are here. So we have this div. So we have a column. There's our column. And you can see our card starts here and ends here. So that's our card. So I'm going to copy this card. Hit enter there. Paste it in. Come down here, find that same little chunk of text, hit enter, paste it in. Find this little chunk of text, enter, paste it in. And I no longer need this P tag to insert cards here because I already inserted cards there. I'm going to save. I'm going to tidy my HTML just to make it look nice. And then we're going to go up here to my portfolio. And you can see here, ta-da, there we go. Cool, right? All right, and again, we're going to adjust this to see how even all these elements, even though this is centered here, the actual div itself is not centered. So we're going to go through and fix that, all right? These things kind of touch. So let's see, the block has a padding of that. So we're going to have to add in some padding on there. And if you see what I'm looking at here, see how you can't tell what this goes with? So we're going to have to add in something else here. So we're going to do that now. All right. I'm going to add in specifically in our div here. So we have 2 rows. Instead of just doing a generic padding of 5%, I'm going to say padding bottom. Let's see what the padding bottom, if that works, of 10%. Folio. And let's go padding. My CSS got messed up. Where am I at here? Padding bottom, 10%. Top, 10%. All right. under my style. Let's see what that gives me. All right, that's still not enough space. All right, so I'm going to mess with CSS a little bit later with these to try to give us more space anyway. So I'm not too concerned about this right now because it's in the wrong spot. So ignore that. All right, I'll mess with this later. Anyway, let's see where we at. I'm going to have to fix that with CSS. I was trying to do a quick fix. But that's what happens when you try to do a quick fix. Doesn't always work. So we know we got to come back and mess with this CSS because I'm not happy with that. You might be happy with that, but I'm not. So let's do this last section here. This contact section is huge, and we only need to put some buttons here. So let's go down to this section. HR slash H1. Finish that. And I'm going to get rid of this. This contact is good, right? But I'm going to change this block to block 2. And I'm going to make this smaller. I want to keep all of this stuff for block except for one thing. So I'm going to copy my block. Control V. I'm going to add in a block 2. And then instead of making this 75% width, I'm going to make it half the size. So half of 75 is 37.5. 1%. Oops, wrong one. Oh, that was right. Make this block 2. There we go. Don't rush, kids. When you rush, this is what happens. There you go. So now it says half of the size of that past div. So I'm going to drop some buttons in there. So let's do some buttons. So do we remember how to do buttons? Oops. Hey. Need all of you. I want to put buttons. All right. Now for my buttons, I'm going to use this same kind of process with breaking this up into 3 sections. Okay. And you can use the Bootstrap grid system if you want, or you can use the Bootstrap button list, which is basically what I'm going to do. So I am just going to add in 3 buttons. All right, so I'm just going to add in a div, all right, with a class equal to button list and text center. We're going to close your div. Again, I mess up more than usual because I've been using a text editor lately. And when you use a text editor, what happens is it automatically closes everything for you. And so you end up getting lazy. So if that happens, right, make sure you go back and check what you're doing. So I need an anchor tag. I'm going to give this a class. I'm going to use Bootstrap buttons. Okay. And how to use Bootstrap buttons? I want a button. I want the button to be default. All right, just your default button. Because we're inside of CodePen, we do have to add in a target equal to underscore blank, and that opens it up in a new blank tab. All right, that's all that means. And we need to know where we're going. Right, so we need an href. I'm going to set that equal to just a £sign for now. All right. And this is where you're going to put the link. All right. So if you go like Twitter, GitHub, all that kind of stuff, that's where you're going to stick this stuff into on your own page, which you should be more than capable of doing. And I am going to add in href, Twitter. All right. That'll be good. And then I'm going to remember to actually close this anchor tag. And then I'm going to put in, let's say, first one I'll do is Twitter. To my contact. Hey, look, I have a button that says Twitter, and it rolls over, has all its animations built in right there. Now, that's not really good enough for me. I'm going to go over and use this. Remember this Font Awesome we did last time? So Font Awesome icons, you can Google it. And let's take a look at Twitter icons. Cool Twitter icon that I want. And remember, this is going to be an inline element. So here we go. There's an inline element that I can copy. I want this to be right before the Twitter, but I want there to be a space. That's what I just did. Control V. Contact. Ta-da. Fancy little Twitter button. All right. So there's Twitter. That's all good to go. I want 3 buttons. I don't want all 3 to be Twitter, but I'll change them. Control C. V. V. So I should have 3 Twitter buttons. 3 Twitter buttons. You can add space in there too, if you want. I'm not really too concerned with that. Like, you can use the Bootstrap grid system and center them if you want. So you can do, column medium 4, column medium 4, column medium 4, and then center the whole thing if you don't want them touching. I'm not as concerned with it. So here we go. So we have a Twitter button. I'm going to have a GitHub, and I'm going to have a YouTube. Okay. So I need to go find Twitter and GitHub and YouTube. So let's go to GitHub. I'll grab this GitHub. I'm trying to finish this up in 2 more minutes. So starting at this I to this I, Control V, GitHub, and the last one, I will go to YouTube, and I want the YouTube play button on this one. You can select whichever one you want. Copy. And again, from the I to this I, Control V, YouTube. Save. All right, so right now, full page. You can see I have a portfolio, I have the about, I have a portfolio page, and I have a contact, all right? And you can see what this looks like right now. So that's going to be about it for us right now. If I don't want this as bottom of the page, I don't really like the way that looks right there. So I'm just going to add in real quick another spacer to the bottom. Let's see. Why? Because I don't like the way that just stops there. There we go. Full page. That's better. All right. So we still have to add in some CSS to clean this stuff up a little bit, clean up my spacers, and you can add in new pictures, or we can make these anchor tags if you like to bounce out somewhere else. And we can adjust the size of our font. All right. So we just have some final cleanup to do. But for the most part, we're pretty well done. So hopefully this was helpful. If you want to come back for one last video just to do some final cleanup, I'll make sure I post that. Otherwise, you should be pretty well ready to go. All you got to do is add in your links where I put in these little pound signs here. And that should be it. All right. So hopefully that was helpful, and I will see you all next time.